seats or something? How are you? Nice to see you, everybody. Yeah, this is really cool. Thanks for coming out. I'm really taken aback. Very surprised. Wow. Nice to see you. Yay, yay. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Is that on? Is yours on? No. Here, take this one.
Well, okay, so while Bryan is channeling.
House and just sat there, took a nap, read a book, ate soup. It was just the best. It's the best. But I used to always come up here as well. There was a charity event up here in Rose City that my wife and I used to always come up, and because we just love this area so much. It's like the perfect size city because it's big enough to have the culture you want, plenty of restaurants, plenty of everything, but not an abundance of, not too much of that. And it's like, oh, like where I live in Los Angeles, that is just massive, you know, and it's just uncomfortable. So.
Well, we're happy to have you back, especially on a fourth story day like this. Hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed and there won't be any trees falling down for you. Yeah. So now, your book is really, it's really pretty wonderful, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, I just found it very readable, and as we were talking earlier, you wrote it, it sounds like you. And one of the points that I was really struck by that you make is the importance of storytelling. You know, you talk about how actors are storytellers. You mentioned your father was kind of a naturally gifted storyteller, judging from this book. You obviously have the gift yourself. Why do you think storytelling is so much a part of who you are and something that seems to resonate so much with people?
I don't think it's exclusive to me. I think that's probably our earliest memory is dragging a book to our parents' lap and looking at the pictures and being told a story. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 or 102, that never changes. You want to be told a really interesting story. That's the joy and really the discovery of a human being, is that we are not only willing, we desire to be told something that we know consciously is not necessarily true, but we don't care. Take us away, tell us a story, let us dream, and that's I think that's the sweetest thing about human beings. Some of us then are the real lucky ones that we are able to be in a profession where we then become also the storyteller, but that doesn't mean we stop wanting to be the listener of the story, right? So it's been a gift for me, it's been a joy, but it hasn't always been very clear that that's what I was going to do. I mean, I had a very challenging childhood, and I was being guided to one place, and then that switched and went to another place. Oh, these flyers, they were coming by with yeah. It's like a drive-by iPhone. But it's really interesting to realize that, where is your destiny? And I had a difficult childhood, but I don't think it's unique in that sense. I think there's a lot of people who have had those challenging childhoods. I probably had it better than a lot of people, even here today, who had it really tough. And despite that, you still need to forge your own identity, find out who you are, where you belong, and find your slice of happiness, whatever makes you happy. So I talk to a lot of kids who are interested in becoming actors or anything within the arts, and I often say to them, if you can do something else and be happy, then that's probably what you should be doing. Because it is a very difficult road. There's never going to be a shortage of actors or writers or directors, just there never will. And the life doesn't owe you anything, and you just have to carve it out for yourself. But I also say that if you are listening to this and you are one of those people who are thinking, I feel a burning desire to tell stories, a burning desire to be a poet, to be a songwriter, to be a singer, to be a painter, whatever. If you feel that's in your being, that's who you are, you must try. You must get out there and make that attempt, because the only true failure is if you don't.
Well,
Then you fail for sure.
You had an epiphany because you were on the track to go into law enforcement.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic considering you later played Walter White. There's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And you had a moment where you realized, I don't really think law enforcement is for me, and you just had this conviction that you wanted to be an actor,
Right.
which was interesting because your dad had wanted to be an actor too.
Well, my dad was an actor, and he experienced pretty much. I'm going to stand up for this. There's some people straining. And pretty soon I'm going to talk about an opportunity in the world of Avon products. No, my dad was an actor, and he had the typical actor's life, which is, oh, that was nice, oh, that's low, 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 lower, lower, middle, lower, lower, oh, lower, lower. And so we had experiences when I was a kid where I remember him buying a new car for our family, and then a year later, we got rid of that new car and got an old car. And then a couple of years after that, we put a built-in swimming pool in, the whole thing with the gunite and the whole rebar and everything. And then the following year, I remember my mother saying, we can't swim in the pool this year because we can't afford the chemicals. So it looked like a swamp. And so, but as a kid, you don't have anything to relate it to. It's just your life, and you don't really realize that there's misfortune there. It's just you're kind of going along with your life. It's not until you become older and more mature that you look back and you go, oh, that was a bad period, wasn't it? And there was a time that when, after my father had come into this life crisis of his own, and he left the family. I was 11 at the time, and I didn't see him again until I was 22. My mother was heartbroken, and she started to self-medicate and became an alcoholic. And so she became emotionally disconnected from me. So there you are, you're 11 years old. You're 12 years old, you're trying to figure out, what do I do next? Where do I go? Fortunately, I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me, and he was just a step ahead. So he was kind of running into things just before I knew I would, and he was almost like a lineman, and I'm a fullback, and I go, oh, he's opening a hole. I can find it and go there. Not fair to him, he was just a kid too. And when he was 16, he joined the Police Explorers in Los Angeles. I don't know why. He knows why, because he said that we travel a lot. So we were poor kids from a suburb of Los Angeles. And when he was 16, he joined this group, and the first thing they did was go to Hawaii. The next year, they went to Japan. So I thought, all right, I'm joining this group. I don't know what I have to do, but that's the only way I can see getting myself to any of these romantic places. And so I joined the Police Explorers, not knowing what I would have to do. I had to go to the LAPD Academy for 8 straight Saturdays and study police work, procedures and protocols and marching and direction and traffic control and things like that. And I found out that I had an aptitude for it. Who knew? I graduated first in my class of 111 16-year-olds. So from that point, this kid was thinking, oh, I guess that's what I should do. I guess I'm going to be a policeman. Well, it makes sense, right? You're good at something, try it. First summer, we go off to Europe. I was 16 years old. Off we go with 20 other friends. And we go to Europe. And it is, unfortunately, where I lost my virginity. And I go back every year to look for it. My second year of college, though, I was on track studying police science. Second year of college, I'm taking an elective course of acting because I had done some when I was a kid, and it was fun. And I get in the class, and the teacher is handing out scripts for us to read, depending on proximity, whoever. Oh, you two read this, you two read this, you two read this, and I was standing next to a really, really pretty girl. And I got this script, and it said, "A couple is making out on a park bench." I'm supposed to do this. My job now is to kiss this pretty girl. This never happens in police science. But now it's like this is your job. This is what you're supposed to do, and do it well. So I thought, okay, she's ready because I'm gonna really kiss her. Before I can put down my script and turn, she is onto me, lip locks, she's pulling her body on top of mine. We are kissing and rolling around on this bench, and hugging and kissing and feeling, and she's on top of me and squeezing. And then she started patting me, like up on my upper thigh. Like I didn't know what that was. That was a new move. I was only 19. I didn't know that move. It's like, oh. I guess women like that. So I started patting her back a little bit. What she was telling me is, get on with the scene. My character had the first line. It was supposed to push back from this embrace and say, "Beth, we need to talk." I didn't want to push back. Slapping me in the thigh. Like, finally, I push back and I go, okay, yes, push her away. Okay. I forgot the line. We finally get through it. And at the break, I thought, oh, this is easy. I'm in. We're going to go out. There's no question. She was into me. So I go up to her and I ask her, I said, well, I thought that went pretty well. And she said, well, it was a little rough in the beginning. Yeah, no, sorry, I lost my place. She said, okay, that's all right. I said, so we should go out sometime. And she looked at me like I was a lost puppy. And said, oh, no, I have a boyfriend. And of course, when you're 19 and a boy, you feign indifference, like it didn't matter to you. She said yes, all right? So I went, yeah, okay, no problem. She walks away. Oh. How did I miss that? So two things were taking this 19-year-old boy and swirling around in his head, making me dizzy. One was that my responsibility in that class was to kiss this girl and to really believe it and make out with this girl. That was one thing that was crazy. The second thing was, she was acting. She wasn't into me at all, which made me crazy. Now I'm thinking, oh my God, I totally believed it. That's amazing. This woman was amazing. And I lost track of her. I don't know what happened to this girl, Meryl Streep, but I wish her well and whatever she may be doing now. I wish I could get a hold of her and say, you really changed my life. But so, that was the preface of this. So, it confused me. So what did I do? I got on a motorcycle and I left California for 2 years just to travel around, allowing myself to get lost. Because I knew I didn't want to go into police work, and this new thing of acting was, can I really do that? My father tried and failed at it, and it didn't work for him. It, in some ways, perhaps contributed to breaking up the family. So, and I wasn't mature enough to really recognize who I was and who I should be. So I left. I ran away, basically. I had to get away to get lost. In retrospect, I realized that I was getting lost purposefully so that at some point I could be found. I could find myself. And it was on the Blue Ridge Parkway of Virginia, pouring rain, beautiful on a motorcycle, unless it's raining, then you can't see anything. And it was pouring rain. Now this was before GPS, so our little maps, my brother was with me, and there was no way of knowing where we were. We could be 20 minutes away from a town, we could be 200 miles away from that. We had no idea. We saw a sign, a rest stop, we pulled down. There was a slab of cement, a picnic table, 4 posts and a roof, and a sodium light in this compound. We took our motorcycles up onto this slab. We knew we were spending the night, and we got out we had our carburetors back then, and this is the 70s. We'd open up our carburetors into a little stove, a camp stove, and that's how we cooked our food, right? And we had bouillon cubes. Do you remember what these are? Whatever, top ramen at that point was like, wow, we're living. If we had any top ramen left, that was great. But we had Sanka and we had, anytime we went to a restaurant and order a bowl of soup, because it was usually pretty cheap, and we'd grab all the saltine crackers, and take it with us. So we had lots of saltine crackers and bouillon cubes. We ate well. And it was on that little trip when we were there, somewhere in Virginia, when it was pouring rain and didn't stop raining, for 6 days, we were on this slab of cement. And I had a book of plays with me that I was reading, and I was reading Hedda Gabler at the time, an Ibsen play. And at the end of the play, I was leaning towards light, and I realized at the end, when I finished it, I was leaning towards the one sodium light in the compound, because it was night. I had never before, unless I was sleeping, I had never before, I don't know if any of you have experiences, missed the transition from day to dusk to night. I missed it completely. The last time I remember it was day, and then it was leaning in, and I looked up when I finished it, it was nighttime. And that took me away and made me realize, that epiphany, that there's something there. It allowed me to escape the mundane experience that I was having at this rest stop. And I knew then that I should try to do something that I loved and hopefully become good at, as opposed to doing something that I was good at but didn't love. So right then I was 22 years old, and I said, this is it. I'm going to be an actor, and whatever it takes, I'm on this road. I have no backup plan. Go. And that was that moment.
Well, and you did become pretty good at acting. I think we all can agree on that. And as we also saw, you are so funny. You are so hilarious. And a lot of your early career, you did comedy. You were the dentist of the stars on Seinfeld. You were the goofy sitcom dad in Malcolm in the Middle. And even people who admired your talent then, I don't think would ever have predicted that you would then become Walter White, Mr. Chips turns into Scarface. I mean, you write a lot about trying to find the key to Walter White and how important that was to you. I'm just curious, sort of, what that process was like for you to go from comedy, which obviously you're really great at, to something that was worlds away. Even though Walter White had his funny moments, in my opinion.
Well, from an acting standpoint, and I would say this is a piece of advice, that if you don't have a lot of confidence in your work and your ability, you're entering the wrong game. You got to know that you have it, whether you're an athlete or an artist of any kind, or writer, a journalist, anything like that. You have to know and be confident in what you're doing and to present yourself in that way. When I'm producing now and I direct, and so when actors come in and they show confidence that they know what they're doing, I have much more confidence in me in hiring them. So the people who come in, and here's the difference, is that if I can give one tip to anyone as far as actors are concerned, but I would say this applies to all the arts. I'm not positive on that, maybe some adjustment to that, but I know it applies to acting, and that is, I used to think that when I would go on an audition that I was there on a job interview. I would always think that they're hiring, and I'm here to audition and hopefully be hired. And the truth is that that's not what you're there for. So for the actors in the group, take this. If you take it and you really take it in, it could change your life as it did mine. What I realized is that I was working under a false premise, thinking that I had some kind of control there. I didn't. When I was going and looking for something, you are in need. Instead of going there to get a job, you have to think that you're going there to do a job. Just focus on your work and only your work and leave it. And the reaction to that will be far greater than if you were to appear in any way needy. This will help you beyond belief. So, and I think it does apply to many of the arts. It just focus and the attention and the work you put into your art form and present it and then walk away. It did indeed change my life. So having a sense of, you have to have this sense of confidence when you're presenting yourself to the world, that you feel you can do the job. You have to be what Shirley Knight, a great actor, Oscar-nominated actor, said in one of the many classes that I took with her, is that you have to have an actor's arrogance. And that's not an arrogance or a boastfulness, anything outside in your real world. But you have to be the one, like an athlete, to say, give me the ball, 3 seconds left, I want it. Give it to me, I want to take the shot. You have to be able to say, let me do or die with that. And if you could exactly do or die with it. But you have to have that assertiveness to do it. So I was always interested in expanding things and doing something different. And anything you're known for, often you'll get attention and kudos for that. But it doesn't necessarily always suit what your goal is. So after Malcolm in the Middle, for 7 years of Malcolm in the Middle, it ends, and I had a couple offers to do a silly, goofy dad and a couple other TV pilots, and my answer was no, because I just did that for 7 years. I don't want to be derivative of myself. I have to expand and put myself in a position where you're constantly looking for new avenues and new opportunities. I'll tell you one thing too, no person who is successful in the arts. What's your name, sir? Art. Thank you, Art. Nice to see you. I was just, you have a great taste. I just wanted to say hello. What do you call us? Heisenberg Jr.? What I was saying is that no person who is successful in the arts has ever achieved that without a healthy dose of luck. You cannot be successful without luck. So how do you do that? Well, you can't manufacture luck, but you can be prepared for it. You know, I say, you know, get your house in order, make sure that everything you do is in line with making yourself ready for success. So your home life, your personal life, your health, your body, your mind, get yourself in shape in all forms so that you're ready when you have an opportunity and someone says, come on in, that you can perform and you can actually get in there and do what you profess that you can do. Malcolm in the Middle went 7 years. At the end of the 7th year, Fox tells us we might do an 8th year. Great, we love it, we had so much fun. It's so much fun to go to work and make people laugh. And so they said, don't take down the sets. We may do an 8th year. And we've all got our fingers crossed. Come on, this will be so fun. We loved everybody, and you're a family now, and you've shared intimate moments, and you're hugging, and you've been through some marriages and divorces and births and deaths. You've experienced a lot with these people over the course of 7 years. It would be great to go another year. Gets down to the end of April, beginning of May. Fox makes a call. The answer is no. They won't pick us up for an 8th year. We're depressed. It's like, oh no, damn. But I'm already thinking, okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. Because I adapted that I'm here to do a job, not need something. I'm very fatalistic in that sense. Something else is supposed to be for me. This 8th year is clearly not supposed to be happening. So, later that year, I get a call from my agent and say, do you remember a guy named Vince Gilligan? I said, no. He said, he wrote the X-Files episode that you did 8-9 years ago. I go, I don't really remember him, but he's got a script called Breaking Bad, and he wants to see you for the role, and others, but he wants to have a meeting with you. And I go, great. I go in, I read this, and it was unbelievable. It's the best drama pilot I've ever read. And I knew where he was going. It was so evocative that I couldn't help start the actor process, which is developing the character, because he was speaking to me so clearly what this man was like, the depression from missed opportunities in his life, and just putting one foot in front of the other, the soul-killing experience of looking out in his classroom and seeing a sea of apathy from these students who didn't want to be there, didn't care about chemistry, his love, and it was just chipping away at his humanity. But his willingness to take a second job to help his special needs son. He's doing what he has to do, but this poor bastard then gets cancer, he's going to die in 2 years. Oh my God. I had to get this role. This is like, oh wow, this is so fantastic. So I came in there and I started talking, and I told Vince Gilligan, I said, you know, he should be overweight. We shouldn't have any color to his hair. He should have this little mustache where you look at him and go, what's the point? And I called it my impotent mustache. It was terrible. No color to his face. All my clothes, we talked this over with the wardrobe person, I said, all my clothes should be sand color and taupe and cream. And this is a guy who is invisible to himself and invisible to society. He doesn't know that he even exists. He's just marking time and going through his life and see what happens. And then he has this diagnosis of 2 years and he'll be done. So for the first time in his adult life, he makes this dramatic decision, this desperate decision, to do something for his family before he goes. Great. Man, I was all over Vince. I was lifting my leg on him, marking. I wanted my scent, everything. I just circled in. I wanted him to think by the end of that meeting that I was the only guy who could do this role. Still didn't want to show that I wanted it so much. It's like, yeah, that's what I think. So I just kept loading him up with ideas, and he became my champion to get that role. Now, the finality to that is this. We shot the pilot for Breaking Bad in February and March of '07. Had we picked up that 8th season of Malcolm in the Middle, it would have finished production in March or April of '07, meaning someone else would have gotten the pilot of Breaking Bad, and I wouldn't be standing here right now talking to you. So it proves my point that even when it seems on the surface something apparently bad may have happened in your life, 2 great things. It wasn't for you anyway. There's a different path for you. And the other thing is, when something seemingly bad happens, it will make a great story. Because you have to have conflict in a story. And so when anything bad happens, I try to tell my daughter that says, like, oh, you know, I'm sorry, honey, but it's going to be a good story. So that's how that came about.
It is amazing that this character went on the journey that he went on. Even more amazing is the fact that people embraced it so much. I mean, embraced the show, certainly embraced Walter White, a character who you wouldn't necessarily classify as a hero based on the things that he does. You open your book with probably the most harrowing scene in the entire show, where we learn exactly what Walter White is capable of. Why do you think people became so obsessed with Breaking Bad And so many people just developed this fascination for Walter White and saw him as a hero of sorts, or at least certainly an anti-hero.
It's Vince Gilligan. He deserves all the credit. Well, maybe I get it. But I was the face of it, but I tell people, I said, I'm the lead singer, he is the genius writer. So I'm David Lee Roth out there from Van Halen. I don't write any music. He is the genius behind it, and that was how it all came about. In the very beginning, he planted seeds in all of us, including me, that here's the condition that you find this man. Sympathetic condition, right? You felt for him. This guy, this poor guy, I feel for him, I wish. And then all of a sudden he says he's going to do something like, because it's chemistry and that's the only thing he knows, I'm going to make crystal methamphetamine. I'm going to be very selfish for the next year and a half maybe of healthy living before I die. And I'm going to set my family up so they don't lose the house, so the kids can go to college. And you go, well, I kind of understand that. I kind of get that. And then you start realizing, as you've already committed to him, it's like we went fishing and you grab the bait and the hook is sinking down into your gut. And you're going, we're letting out line. We're not pulling it back yet. We're letting out line, you're swimming, you don't even know, it's going. And then at a certain point, when Walt does something particularly heinous, we click. And you go, no, I don't like him anymore. I'm not going to watch this show anymore. And we go, oh yeah? Reeling in. That was Vince. You start reeling in. And then how many of you start going, oh, I can't stand what he's doing. This is awful. Or some of you stop and think. I had a lot of people tell me, I think your wife is a bitch. That's Skylar. She's on your back all the time. When does she get off your back? God, hate that person. And I go, oh, you mean because she caught her husband lying to her? And because she's concerned and worried about her husband and the health and safety of her children? That makes her, And then she finds out he's making crystal methamphetamine, and it's like, and then you start going, oh yeah. So what his brilliance did, unlike you passively watching the show, and then at the end of it you go, oh, that's nice. He made you invest in the show. He made you invest in these characters. And every specific way, every moment of all those 62 episodes brought you deeper and deeper and deeper of your investment into those characters. And you could be, and they did this by design. At sometimes you were thinking, I'm with Jesse, I'm totally with Jesse. Well, Walt, and he was manipulating the whole thing. Hopefully you didn't feel the manipulation, but or see the strings like puppets. But that's what it is. It's careful manipulation, so refined and so subtle and nuanced that you don't actually know when it's happening to you. You're just so into these characters. And it was like, every week was like opening up a present. You open up a script and start reading and it's like, oh my God. Do you remember the episode where he says he's really upset because he thinks I poisoned Brock, I poisoned the little kid?
Yes.
Well, I never read the scripts before, like 4 to 5 days before we started shooting. So when he came over to the house in that one episode, and he's saying, why did you poison him, you son of a bitch, I'm gonna kill you. I was honestly acting as if it wasn't me, because I hadn't read the next episode. So I was going, why would I do this? Who stands to gain from this? Gus Springs stands to gain from this. Go after him, not me. Sensible, think what you're saying, you know. I didn't know. We finished that episode, I start to read the next one, and all of a sudden I get to that part, and I'm like, oh my God. I did do it. Oops. But being the careful chemist that I am, I gave him just enough poison so he wouldn't die.
That's why we couldn't stop watching Wolf. One of the, you've touched on this already, and certainly one of the big themes of the book is how important, as you put it, just doing the work is. You mentioned that specifically when it comes to acting, but you also paid your dues quite a bit as a younger man before you were walking the red carpet, and we all saw you, with lots of jobs that involved lots of work. I was particularly struck by one you did when you were a kid that involved a lot of close working with chickens.
Well, my brother and I were shipped off to live with my maternal grandparents when my parents split up. My dad took off and my mom was incapable really of taking care of us, and so my brother and I went to live with our grandparents. He's an old stock, old world German fellow, and tough love kind of guy. And he lived on a little farm, a gentleman's farm, in a little out in San Gabriel. And one of our tasks was to take care of the livestock. And about a month into, my brother and I were suburbanites from Los Angeles, and there was no TV. You turn that off. Come on, you got chores to do night and day. And we hated it at first, and then we realized this is really okay. In retrospect, you go, it really was very formative years, and it really set me up to develop a work ethic that I have to now. And one of the things we were charged with doing, and I just turned 12, was to cull the livestock. And as a rite of passage, my grandfather had 20, 25 chickens that were ready to be killed. And my brother and I were going to do it. So he showed us how to do it. And he grabbed a chicken, and by its legs and its wings and the tips of the wings and the legs, one hand, put it down on the chopping block, take a hatchet and chop the thing's head off, hold it over a blood bucket until it drains, and then throw the carcass into the dead chicken carcass bucket. That's what I named it. And so he did about half a dozen of those, and it was my brother's turn, thank God, because he was 2 years older. I don't know why that is. The older guy goes first, it's like that's how it goes. So he was nervous, and I didn't make fun of him at all because I knew I was next. I'm like, ugh. And he grabbed his chicken, and he put the chicken's head down there on the block, and he raised the hatchet, and he closed his eyes, and he came down, and it went right into the chicken's comb, right into the hair of the chicken. Now, I'm told that it's like they don't have any feeling in that. Anybody know that for sure? I'm told that they don't have any feeling in the comb. But it freaked out this chicken, I gotta tell you. This chicken knew at that moment this was no ordinary day of picking the ground. Something was going on. So he was like, and my grandfather, for crying out loud, so my brother has a second chance, and the second chance he's determined. I could see him shaking with nerves, and he was like, and he does it, and he holds the thing, and he drains the blood and throws the chicken in there. So now, by the time the hatchet was handed to me, and by the way, I knew this too. Every time my brother cut the head off a chicken, he would look to my grandfather like, enough? I did one? And he goes, no, everyone had to do at least a half a dozen. So by the time it did come to me, that blood bucket was pretty full. And the dead chicken bucket was pretty full too. So I was determined not to do what my brother did. I'm going to laser focus on this, and chop that sucker's head off as best I can, as fast as I can. and I grab the chicken by the feathers and bring it down so that I'm just holding on to the feet, and here it is, and I put him down there, and I can see him go, whoop. And I remember whispering, because I did not want my grandfather to hear this. I'm sorry. I was looking down, I was its executioner, and it was like, oh man, but it's better you than me, pal. And whap! Down it goes. The hatchet embedded into the block. I held the chicken over the blood bucket. It was doing well, but the central nervous system of a chicken doesn't have a head yet. So it's like, it's moving all over the place, and it's moving and jumping, and pretty soon I was determined not to let go, but the wings got loose. The wings got loose, and I'm trying to grab the wings, and all of a sudden I dipped down too low, and the whole chicken went into the blood bucket and started flapping its wings. Now the blood is up into my nostrils. I'm not letting go, I'm holding on to this chicken. And blood, I look like Carrie. Blood everywhere. I'm holding on to this thing, and I can hear my grandfather go, oh, for crying out loud! And I finally just flung the chicken in the direction of the dead chicken bucket, and I missed, and it jumped around, and this bloody chicken is running around, bumping into whatever was in its way. I was covered with blood. My brother didn't laugh at me either, because he knew. And we just went over to the garden hose, and he hosed off the blood. Yeah, it was tough. And then later that night, when my grandfather was retelling the story to my grandmother, she started laughing, and so did my grandfather. And then my brother started laughing. I guess it was funny. At the time, though, it was so devastating. But that's one of the experiences, and had I not had to kill a chicken, I wouldn't have had that story. Sorry.
I mean, that's an example, I think, of, again, when we see actors, when we see you're on the red carpet with your lovely wife. You're winning awards, you're winning critics awards, acclaim, but in the book, you definitely take pains to show that acting is not all glamour, and being a celebrity is not something that necessarily will turn your head. And I think you have been an example of kind of lessons that you can learn from the real world. I mean, how do you think some of those less than glamorous experiences of your past have made you sort of who you are today?
Well, I think there's four things that an actor needs to draw from in order to create a character and have a healthy life as an actor, and that's, you have to have talent. This is what I was talking about, the actor's arrogance part. It's like you have to admit it. Don't have false modesty. If you have talent, you have talent. Own it. And you have to be able to have a healthy experience so that you can draw from your past experiences. You also have to have an active imagination, to be able to connect the dots of what isn't given to you in a script or a play. You have to be able to imagine how you can connect that character to those circumstances. And then the fourth thing is really research. The ability and the joy of diving in and doing research on your character, certainly if it's non-fictional, but even on a fictional character, you can find literary examples of characters that may be like the one you're playing, and you can borrow some characteristics and idiosyncrasies from that person to form your character. So, I mean, I just think that whatever you bring who you are to everything you do. And I can also tell you that when I was a teenager, my family called me Sneaky Pete because I was a sneaky guy. I was trying to figure things out without a dad and really without a mom, and I took shortcuts, and I tried to circumvent responsibility and not try to figure out how to get out of working, how to duck and cover and move and lie. I had an alias in schools. I would always get another alias in junior high and high school. And it's in the book. There's a picture of me with my real name, and then there's a picture of me as Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson got into a lot of trouble. So whenever I got into trouble, it was Bill Johnson. And when I'm ditching school or something like that, or a prank that went awry and I get caught, Bill Johnson got caught. And even when they're saying I'm gonna have to go to the office and we're gonna have to call your parents on this, and it's like, oh no, please don't call Estelle and Frank Johnson. They would be so disappointed in me. But go ahead, do what you have to do. I'll just go this way. And I realized at a certain point, through therapy, saying that whatever it takes for a child to get through a difficult childhood is fine. Whatever it takes to survive a difficult childhood. But at some point, that needs to adjust. You need to mature and grow out of that and change your ways, or else it'll cannibalize you. And so I took that to heart, and it's like to try to reinvent yourself. And it's really not fair to be judged by who you were as a teenager. And so it really took its turn, and I realized that as much effort as I was putting into avoiding responsibility and trying to look for shortcuts, had I just spent that time and energy doing the work, I would have been much further ahead. So, bad news to any of you young actors out there who are looking for the miracle serum of how did you do it, what's the trick kind of thing. There is none. There is no substitute for work. It's got to be all about the work, and that's why I say that if you feel you could be happy doing something else, then you should do that. But if you love this work, if you love your art, whatever it is, then you need to just dive in and devote your time and energy and life to that.
Throw it open to take some questions from folks. I'm not sure how we want to do that. Do you want to choose?
Sure. Sir, you had your hand up first.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, you direct a lot of TV episodes, some great ones on Breaking Bad. You're going to do some feature films?
The question was about directing. Yeah, I did about 9 Malcolms and 3 Breaking Bads and 2 French hens and 1 turtle. Yeah, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I've directed some episodes of Modern Family and things like that, so it's fun. And yeah, I have a script that I wrote that I would like to direct, and we're setting it up now to hopefully do maybe even as soon as late next summer, possibly. Yeah, we'll see. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. What was it like being on Power Rangers?
What was it like being on Power Rangers? Power Rangers. When I was just starting out, I was 22 years old, and I was offered a job voicing the dubbing work for Power Rangers when it came over from Japan. And I did it so much, it was a great job. And you learn a lot, how to convey an emotion just through your voice. That's it. How do you tell a story just through your voice? So great training, it was a good job to have. And I did it so often that when they had to name the characters as they came over, because they had the Japanese names and they wanted to Americanize it. And so they said, well, what do we name these kids? And one of them is named Billy Cranston, after me. I used to be known as Billy. No. Yeah, Bill Johnson. But yeah, they named the Blue Power Ranger Billy Cranston. And so, come full circle, I get a call about 6 months ago. They're doing a Power Rangers movie. I said, we want you to play Zordon. You remember Zordon? Yes. And so I said, the guy in the wall? He goes, yeah. That was kind of interesting. And, but I also kind of cheesy. I was like, I don't know. They go, no, this is like, you know, how, this is what the Batman series compared to the Batman movies, completely different. And that's what they're going for here. It's going to be a completely different vibe. And it comes out next year, next March.
Nice.
All right.
Back to Breaking Bad. Yeah. So the Walter White character is so incredibly complex and multi-leveled, and he's very endearing and despicable. And I'm wondering how much of it was the written character and how much was your creation, and if there were any personality traits or quirks that you brought to it really was.
That's a good question. How was playing Walter White possible, basically, right? I think again, you have to draw from your past experiences. I had an experience. I wrote it in the book. It's harrowing. It makes me palpitate every time I talk about it. But I had a crazy girlfriend, and she was on drugs, and I didn't know it. I was very ignorant to it. To this day, I don't know very much about drugs, believe it or not. And I never saw her do it, ever. So she was very cagey about how she did, but her whole personality would change. And I knew, okay, this has got to end. This has got to end. So I prepared to break up with her, and I thought of what she could possibly say. She could be angry at me, she could be pleading with me, she could be crying, she could be any number of things. The one thing that I didn't plan for was what she said, which was no. What? She goes, no, we're not breaking up. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. And she was this 5'1", really pretty actress who I met after I was married once before, and I met after I got divorced. And I was in a place, and her assertiveness was kind of sexy. And I went with it, and I got in her trap, and I couldn't get out, and she scared me. She was ferocious. In fact, it got to a point where I got a job on a soap opera in New York, and I moved to New York. She moved about 2 months later, and she was stalking me, and then would leave these messages on my answering machine, threatening to kill me, or to have me killed. It said, you will be dead. I will kill, and laced with profanity, and she was like, ugh, and she just freaked me out, and I didn't know what to do. The one thing I knew I had on her is she loved her mother and her sister, and she would just say, I'm gonna have you killed, and here's when it's gonna happen. You'll never be. She was just relentless, and I forgot coming home one time from work, and I answered the phone that was ringing. Hello? You think you could just leave me? And I'm like, something clicked, and I went, Erica? I mean, Ava? Oops. The name was changed in the book. I said, don't call me again. If you continue to behave like this, I'm going to let your mother hear these tapes of you threatening to kill me. I want those tapes. Listen to me. I will not send them to her, I promise you. And you know you can trust me, I promise you. If you just stop now, and let's go our separate ways, she will never hear it. I want those tapes! She's screaming. And I'm like, do you not understand what I'm saying? Just please stop. Well, she didn't stop. She said, I'm coming to get those tapes! And now I'm shaking. She comes over. I'm thinking, I should leave my apartment. Should I leave it? No, she might be close. She might have a gun. I would not put it past her to have a gun. So I'm freaking out. And I'm in my apartment, and before long, She's beating on my door, pounding on my door, screaming at me with profanity. Open the door! And I'm like this, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden, something happened, and everything lifted, and I was no longer fearful. I was no longer filled with anxiety. I was just clear of purpose. And I calmly went to the front door, and I opened the front door, and I brought her in. She's still screaming at me, and I closed the door, and I brought her in to the one wall in my apartment that was brick, and I grabbed her by her hair, and I slammed her head against the brick wall. Over and over again.
Oh my God.
Over and over again, until she dropped dead to the floor. That's what happened. And then I woke up. I found myself at the foot of my bed, clutching myself like this, and I was shaking. I was so afraid. I looked to the wall, and she's not there. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And thank God she's not there, and I'm calling 911. I'm just, she scared me to my core. But it made me realize that the meekest person among us, and I'm not meek, and I was initially embarrassed. How could a little 5'1" woman, and I was 28 at the time, or 27. I was a strong young man, and how is this possible? Well, it's possible, and she did it. And I realized that I was capable, that there is such a thing as seeing red, and having your emotions take over, and away goes your intellect, and you do things that are out of body, a temporary insanity, and you do it. And I realized that was possible. So I had to own that as well. That was a true experience. That happened to me. So when it came time to show those flashes of anger and the ability to kill someone on Breaking Bad, I didn't have to go far. It was like, there it is, and just, so it's that. So I wouldn't wish anybody to have an experience like that, but I just have to own it. I just have to embrace it. And when you read the chapter, you'll read other parts of it that don't paint me in a good light. And I wanted to be honest about it, that mistakes were made, clearly. And you have to own that as well. Let's see, who's most exuberant about it? Do that?
I would like you to. You talked about the fact that Walter White is an anti-hero, and that was a unique thing that people liked him regardless of the kinds of things he did. But there were so many other shows that also have that theme. Sopranos, Tony Soprano, Mad Men, Don Draper. My question is, would you ever possibly consider going out with me for a cup of coffee?
I gotta say, I never saw that coming. Well, I would have to look over to my wife. Just coffee.
Very interesting conversation.
Maybe we can have a conversation after this. All right. Yes.
Just one more question.
Oh.
One more.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm at an acting college and we take an SAP class, and I couldn't help but notice. Oh, sure.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
I couldn't help but notice that Walter White uses a lot of SAP that my teacher would strangle us about. Like certain words that most people don't pronounce right. You had everything perfect. So I was just curious if you ever took that type of a speech class, or if you're just already super smart and know how to pronounce everything. Okay, for example, penalized. You said penalized many times. Most people say penalized. But that you say it the right way. Same with the word often. A lot of people say often, but it's pronounced often. And I I just couldn't help but notice that your SAP was just so good. And I was like, dang, Walter White.
You really did.
Look at the show through a microscope, didn't you? How old are you?
I'm 19.
You are? You're 19?
Yeah. I go to an acting college.
You look much younger.
Oh, shut
Sure, let's end it. Thank you, though. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
One more question?
Would you like your
Should we do
microphone
one
back?
more question? Huh?
Would you like your microphone back?
I guess. Nice to see you. You got a tattoo of me? Oh my gosh! Wow. Sure, I'll sign your tattoo. All right, stay hanging loose. We're going to do a question. One more question. Let's end it. And remember, this is the last question, so it's really got to be good. It's really got to be a good question. Where's the good one? Oh my God, I can't choose. All right, you, sir.
Can you confirm? Will you be Mr. Simpson?
Will I be Mr. Sinister? No, I can't confirm that. All right, we can't end it on that. I don't know yet.
All the way! All the way!
Okay,
Me?
let's have a question, yeah.
I want to speak, I'm sure on behalf of everyone, thank you for your work. It's amazing. And I'm just wondering in terms of... One of the things with a character as strong as Walter White is, and you talked about it with the father of Malcolm in the middle, is you tend to get typecast, but it seems to me there's something about Walter White and you as an actor that allows the public to sort of let that character go and look for the next thing you're doing. And I'm wondering how you approach that and look at that, whether or not that was a role that came to you later in your career, but your ability to move on and move past Walter White. And I guess there's a second part of that is where does he reside in your being now that you've set aside?
That's nice. Where does Walter White reside in me? Well, we're inexorably tied. He will be forever living inside me and I within him, I would imagine. I do like to move on from character to character, and I knew that after 6 years of doing Walter White that I needed to let him die so that audiences would accept me doing whatever I was going to do next, because I didn't want to end it there. I didn't want to not work again because of the impact of what happened when the avalanche of the tension that Breaking Bad got, and we were flabbergasted by it. It was amazing to us that it just went that way. So I did look for, like for instance, All the Way. I did look for that role. There was, an incredible character of Lyndon Johnson, and an incredibly important story about how he worked to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 done under those circumstances where he just took over from a president that was loved and assassinated, and within 6 months he got that sign, and it's extraordinary. And so in playing a character like that, and we all know, for those of us who were alive back then, Lyndon Johnson's legacy was that of a failed presidency. He was known for the escalation of troops in Vietnam and the failures there. So in looking at it from an objective viewpoint, I needed to, first of all, you never want to judge the characters you're playing. You want to be inside looking out through those eyes as opposed to looking at him. So I felt it was fair to have him own the losses and the failures of Vietnam, but it's also fair to look at the successes that he had domestically and that sort of thing. Excuse me. I realized that if I can go off and do a different medium, do a play, then it might give, there might be a moratorium on seeing me on television, so I just came up with 3 years. And so I hadn't been on television for 3 years until All the Way came out a few months ago. And it was great. I had my experience on Broadway, and phenomenal experience playing this dynamic character. In fact, Bill Moyers, my favorite quote, the journalist Bill Moyers says, 11 of the most interesting people I've ever met was Lyndon Johnson. He was that mercurial. He didn't know from day to day what kind of man was going to be on the other side of that door in the Oval Office. So playing that kind of Shakespearean character again was wonderful. And I look for roles like that test me, that scare me a little bit. When I was in acting classes, I would always stay until I felt I got as much out of that class as I could. If I ever felt that I was one of the best or the best actor in that class, I'd leave the class and find a class where I was on the bottom rung and just continue to put myself in that position so that I would never get complacent. I would always be striving to improve, and that's, through the trial and error of that, that's what I did. But it was a great journey. I was able to do that. In the book, in the end of the book, is this story about my experience preparing for the stage play of All the Way, and how I was petrified doing it. I was so afraid, and because I miscalculated a couple things and didn't prepare quite right. And so it doesn't matter. I've been doing this for 37 years, but it doesn't matter. At times, if you continue to put yourself in a position of being a beginner, you will stumble at times, and you will find yourself at the mercy of your own humiliation, But there's something challenging about that. I know that if I'm a little afraid of something, it's probably the right thing to do. Like marriage. It scared the crap out of me. But I knew it was the right thing to do. So, and we've been married for over 27 years now. I so appreciate you all being here today. It was really exciting to see you guys and to talk to you and to share some stories. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for coming, and I really, really appreciate it.